this video, I'm going to tell you how I built what I believe to be the best and easiest arcade racing setup for under $1,000. This setup will allow you to play games like Outrun 2, Daytona USA, Forza Horizon 2, Burnout Paradise, Hydro Thunder Hurricane, and many more. This is a console-based setup that will require no computer skills and just very basic assembly skills. While it's not a perfect setup, I do think that it's a whole lot of fun, and I would highly suggest to anyone who is a fan of arcade racing games. Obviously, original arcade racing cabinets will be the best experience, but this will give you a very similar experience for a fraction of the price and space required. Now let me explain to you what led me to this setup. So those of you that have been watching the channel for a while know that the Arcade 1-Up Outrun sit-down is one of my favorite, if not the favorite, arcade cabinet that Arcade 1-Up has built so far. To be honest, I'm not really much of a racing or driving game fan, but I am a huge Sega fan and love the Outrun series. I always felt that it being a sit-down driving cabinet did wonders for the immersion while playing. And while the cabinet is not perfect, I do feel that for the price point they did a great job with it. I was curious as to what other racing cabinets that Arcade 1-Up would do in the future. And the only other games that I had a lot of desire to see would be Daytona USA and Outrun 2. Now Outrun 2 may just be my favorite arcade driving or racing game of all time, and I spent a lot of time researching actual purchasing a full-size Outrun 2 cabinet. And I was really close to pulling the trigger, but knowing how much space it would require, then I decided to pursue other options. Being that I'm a console gamer and not a PC gamer, I decided to look at racing wheels that were compatible with consoles. And if you've ever gone down this rabbit hole, then you will soon learn that compatibility is a big issue, meaning that not every wheel will be compatible with every driving or racing game on a particular console. The first wheel that I picked up was a Logitech G29, and there were a few things that drew me to this wheel. First, it was compatible with Daytona USA on the PS3. Now this version of Daytona USA is a digitally only title that is closer to, if not an exact port of, the arcade original Daytona USA, meaning that it's not the Saturn port that has a lot of issues. And this game plays fantastic with the Logitech G29 and supports full force feedback. Now there is also a version of Outrun Live Arcade which was released on the PS3, and Outrun Live Arcade is somewhat of a port of Outrun 2. This is another digitally only title, and unfortunately it has been removed from the online store, meaning if you didn't purchase the game years ago, then you cannot get it anymore. Now the Logitech G29 is a really high quality racing wheel, and it's very comparable to the Thrustmaster racing wheels. It is also compatible with the PS3, PS4, and PS5 consoles. There is also an Xbox equivalent named the Logitech G27 racing wheel. Now while the Logitech G29 is a fine wheel by all means, it's used more often for racing simulation setups, and I wanted more of an arcade racing setup. In the meantime, I did my research on racing cockpits and monitor setups. I debated between foldable options and more stable and secure options. And while I was doing all this other research, a viewer reached out to me and gave me the idea of using the Xbox 360 wireless racing wheel. We had some pretty in-depth conversations about the wheel, and once I saw the compatibility list, then it really checked off all my big wants for an arcade racing setup. Now a new Logitech G29 sells for $250, and the Xbox 360 wireless racing wheel sells for around $100 after shipping on eBay. And you are getting what you pay for, as it's not as high quality as the Logitechs or Thrustmasters. However, it's not all that bad either, as it does provide force feedback for most games. My next issue was to determine what racing cockpit to get along with it. I decided to pick up the Next Level Racing FGT Simulator Cockpit, which you can get for $4.99 off of Amazon, and it often goes on sale, which it currently is as of the recording of this video. I originally was going to do the GT Track Simulator Cockpit, but went with the cheaper option. I felt like the FGT was a good middle-of-the-road cockpit that wasn't too expensive, but also with its steel frame, it would offer more stability than the foldable options that you can get for about half the price. Now I also needed a monitor or TV mount, and there is a $150 option that fits the FGT cockpit and actually mounts to it. However, I went with a standalone mount that cost a little bit more at $200. I felt like the standalone mount would offer more stability and flexibility. So if you add all the equipment up, then you got $500 for the cockpit, $200 for the monitor, $100 for the racing wheel, and $50 for an Xbox 360 that I got off of Craigslist. If you don't already have a TV or monitor to use, then that leaves you $150 to spend on one. Now obviously you can go higher than that, but I just want to make the point that $1,000 is totally doable. Now I just use a 10-year-old 50-inch plasma that I had, but I will probably replace it with a smaller TV down the road. Reason being that if I use a smaller monitor, then I realized that I could fit two of these cockpits along this wall, meaning one for my arcade setup and one for my Logitech G29, which would be more of a simulation setup. Now if you went with a smaller TV or monitor, then the space required is about 29 inches of total width and between 56 to 65 inches out from the wall. Why I say 56 to 65 inches is because the chair can be slid forward or backwards to accommodate different size players. You can also adjust the tilt or angle of the chair control deck and pedal deck. You can adjust the pedal deck at different spots along the frame to compensate for different leg length. The control deck can also be adjusted to different heights to allow for multiple driving preferences. Now being that this is a next level racing FGT, this means that you can adjust the seating angle for Formula or GT racing styles. I left mine in the GT position, but by removing a piece of the frame, then it positions the chair into the Formula setting. The racing cockpit and monitor stand together took me a total of about 4 to 5 hours to unpackage, assemble, and mount the TV. So it will take up a good part of your day. Once assembled though, this is really a fantastic racing or driving experience. I've experienced no shaking or wobbling, and I really feel like I went with the best option for me. The lone issue that I have with the setup is that the seat is not the most comfortable in the world, but other than that, it offers a great racing experience. Now unfortunately, this cockpit is not designed to work with the Xbox 360 wireless racing wheel. It's designed to be compatible with the Logitechs and Thrustmasters of the world, and it has holes pre-drilled for the pedals and steering wheels for those two setups. My problem was that I couldn't really find a solid option for the 360 racing wheel, and it's more designed to be attached to a table and simply placing the pedals on the floor. I was confident, however, that I could get the next level racing FGT to work with the Xbox 360 wireless racing wheel, and if I couldn't, then I could just use it for my Logitech G29 steering wheel instead. Pedals were easy, as all I had to do was place double-sided sticky tape on the pedals. With the tape on, the pedals are more than secure, and I've had no issues with them sliding around or popping off of the pedal mount. The wheel is a bit more difficult to attach. Now the base to the 360 racing wheel has an arch to it, so it doesn't really fit nice and flat as I would like. Also, the mounting plate for the cockpit is very thin, so I had to wedge a block of wood between the bottom of the mount and the adjustable knob of the racing wheel. This actually worked pretty good, and while it would wiggle slightly, I never had an issue with it coming off or popping loose while driving. I still decided to attach some tie wraps to make the wheel even more secure. This actually worked very well, and now that they're there is no wiggle at all. It's not the best looking option, but it does the job. I may decide down the road to screw into the bottom of the racing wheel to make it more permanent, but for now this option works for me and it leaves the racing wheel in its original state. So as far as performance and compatibility, how does it work? Well, pretty damn good. Like I said, it's not as good as my Logitech, but it works with most of the games that I wanted to work with. Not only does it work with the Xbox 360 games, but it also works with some original Xbox games as well. For instance, it works with Outrun 2 on the original Xbox, but this game does not support force feedback. I've heard that Outrun Coast to Coast works better with the wheel, but it's an extremely expensive game currently, and I've noticed no real issues so far with Outrun 2, so I'm still undecided if I will pick up Coast to Coast as well. Being that this wheel was designed for the 360, the games released on it should for the most part work the best. The following games I have tested and all work great and do support force feedback: Forza Horizon, Forza Horizon 2, Forza Motorsport 4, Dirt 2, Project Gotham Racing 3, and Burnout Paradise. Also, Daytona USA and Hydro Thunder Hurricane are both fantastic and both support force feedback as well. Now, if you're looking to either build an arcade or simulation racing rig, then make sure you first identify what games you are looking to play and what racing wheels support them. Your game selection may differ from what I was looking for, and your space requirements may differ as far as the racing cockpit as well. I know that I'm extremely happy with the setup that I went with, and I would recommend it. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.